Hey, welcome VC. Tony here. Tony's LPs are us. Another segment. Just having a little beer. It's the afternoon. It's Saturday. Picked up some Coors Banquet. I remember when I was growing up in the 70s and I was able to, legally able to buy beer. This was a very hard to find beer in New Jersey. Coors wasn't available. It was just, I guess, available out west. So it was always, anything that's taboo, we all wanted it. So I remember, we had people that were going out to Vegas or going out west, and they were driving. They would always try to bring some Coors Banquet back, and then later on, I guess they got the license to sell all over the country. So now we have it here, and this is the 150th anniversary. So to a great weekend. And I think I have an interesting topic here. And I just want to put out this question to you VCers that have a lot of albums. And by a lot of albums, I mean maybe over a couple of thousand. I know a lot of new people to vinyl. That's a lot. But for us that were collecting for years and years, I know some VCers have up to 20,000 albums, 25,000 albums, etc. And when you have thousands of albums, you think you know what you have, but you don't really remember what you have, or you may have bought something and just filed it away from a collection, thought you were going to get to it, filed it away. So I sometimes I fool around and say, sometimes when I go into my collection, it's like I'm going into someone else's collection. I mean, I know what's there a lot of times. So I'm just going to pose a question to you, and I'll show you what I found in my collection that I didn't know I had, like a few hidden gems. There's tons. I just pulled out a few for this video. But do you know what's in your collection? And when you go through your collection, are you sometimes amazed? That, wow, I have this, I have that, I have an original of this, I have an original mono of this. I didn't know I had the mono. I thought I had just stereo. Things of that sort. And what do you do with those records? If it's a record where you're not familiar with it, do you listen to it, or you just put it aside and maybe you'll never play it? And that's what happened in this case for three of these records that I'm going to show you here. I have four records I picked out. One is something I vaguely remembered, and who knows, I may even have two copies of it. And I'm going to show you that. But think about that question. I hope you could add some comments and let me know how you go about finding hidden gems in your collection. And once again, thanks for everyone for supporting the channel, liking and supporting the channel. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. It really helps us out, and we greatly appreciate it. So, cheers. Okay, the first one up is a record I vaguely knew about, or I vaguely knew I may have had it, and that's REDBONE. This is an original Epic. I think it's an original. I'll look at the, and here's the gatefold. Some beautiful artwork. This is the Vegas brothers. They were out of L.A., California. Native Americans. And their big hit was Come and Get Your Love. This had a big hit prior to that. This was their first single, or big single, which is the Witch Queen of New Orleans. So if you don't know that record, check it out. It's a really good record. It's a great vibe. They're great musicians. The record's well produced. And this is an orange Epic. This is in excellent condition, better than VG Plus. That's it right there. So I was going through the R's and the P's and the end of my collection, and I saw this. I pulled it out. I know where I got it. It's from a record store, but I don't remember playing it, so I must have just filed it away. So that's an example. This next example is very strange because I know from the cover and from the artwork what I'm going to get into when I play it, but I didn't really know anything about the band, and that's Pentagle. Pentagle. It's a British group, 5 members. This is the last original Pentagle lineup. Solomon Steele. That's one. I'll show you them again. Here's the first record, I believe. And this is called Sweet Child. This is one album live from recorded at the Royal Festival Hall, London, June 29, 1968. Sides 3 and 4 were recorded at IBC Studios, London, August 68. That's actually their first live performance as a group. It was actually recorded. It's pretty good. It's a gatefold. It's on Reprise in America. And here's a record that didn't do well for them, but it's the middle of their discography. That's the first 3 I saw. This is Cruel Sister. And this is a record of all traditional Celtic, and British type folk songs or traditional Baroque songs. So the band was formed and I'll read it. The band was formed in 67 in London. It was a folk band, but they're actually jazz, folk, Baroque. The original band was active in the late 60s and early 70s, and a later version has been active since the early 80s. The original lineup, which was unchanged through the band's first incarnation, 67 and 63, was Jackal McShay, who was Jacqueline McShay, John Renbourn, who I know I have a solo album by John Renbourn, who's a excellent folk jazz guitar player, not really folk, but jazz. Bert Jesk, or Yask, Jansch, vocals and guitar. Danny Thompson, who played a double bass, and Terry Cox, who played the drums. The name Pentagle was chosen to represent the 5 members of the band, and is also the device on Sir Gwyn's shield in the Middle English poem Sir Gwyn and the Green Knight, which held a fancy for Redburn. And I'll go into what the pentacle actually symbolizes. As far as a knight goes, the pentacle represents the 5 virtues of knights: courtesy, generosity, chastity, fellowship, friendship, and piety. So that's it. Now, these are excellent recordings. I played these last night as I pulled them yesterday. And Cruel Sister I like a lot, but this didn't do too well as far as from what I read. I don't think it charted too well. Here's the label, American Reprise. And this one I like, Solomon Seal, which is also all acoustic, same members as the same original lineup. It's also on Reprise. And then the first album, which has some interesting artwork on the back, and it goes into each song, who does what, which is a really nice liner note here. And the liner notes are pretty simple, but it actually shows who's who and what the band members' role is within the group. So the pentacle. The word unique and one that is often used out of context. However, as far as pentacle are concerned, it is a word that can honestly be applied. So it talks about the guitarist Bert Jansch, Jackie McShay, John Redbourne, Danny Thompson, and Terry Cox. And Terry also plays a glockenspiel on some real records. So I believe they use traditional instruments that were around in the times that a lot of these songs are written. A lot of these songs are new. They also do. They're mainly called a jazz band from what I read. Jazz, not folk, but jazz folk. And they do a "Goodbye Pork Pie" hat, which is a Charles Mingus song. And they also do some blues. They do "Moondog," which is this number by Terry is dedicated to a blind American street musician who used to play in the doorway of an old Basin Street jazz club on West 50th Street in New York City. So they're all over the place, and really, really interesting stuff. So, I just pulled these out of my collection. Didn't know I had them. Don't really know where I got them, but I probably bought them from a collection that had a lot of things that I didn't have originally. So I'm glad to have them. Here's the Warner. This is a Warner reprise. And this is Solomon's Seal right there. And that's the cover again, the back cover. So, I just asked the question again. When you go through your record collection, are you familiar with every single record? Are you ever surprised? Do you ever say, wow, I didn't know I had that? Or especially if it's a group that you're not really familiar with, like Pentangle. I have a lot of bands that have one-offs, and I know when they're buried away in a collection, they can get lost. It's easy to find your Led Zeppelin. It's easy to find your Stones. Easy to find your Beatles. Easy to find your OJs, Earth, Wind and Fire, Bowie, Grand Funk, Beach Boys. You may have 6 or 7 of those albums, but when you have a one-off, you may have one REDBONE album, it may just get lost. You may have one, John, whoever, Joe Smo, it's going to get lost. So how do you keep track when you do find things like that? Do you listen to them, or do you just keep them filed? So that's just it. I just wanted to show these records. They were a really good listen. They're really well recorded. These are near mint. So wherever I got them from, the person kept them in good condition, because I know I didn't buy these in a record store. I had to get these when I bought maybe a couple 100 records or more from an individual, or from a store, or a flea market, or that type of store, a thrift shop. But these records are really in great shape, and they're really, really well recorded. So they're worth a listen. I recommend Pentangle. They're worth a listen. So just let me know how you think. Rocking, and have a great weekend. Thanks for dropping by. Try to support the channel with a subscription and a like. And if you have any comments about my question, please drop them in the comment section. I'll be happy to read them, and I'm sure everyone else will, as they look into these, as they read the comments. Thanks again. Cheers.